If you're a Canadian and you want to open an LLC, I think it's a great idea. But after talking to hundreds and hundreds of Canadians, both living in Canada and living outside of Canada, there are a lot of traps and a lot of pitfalls that you need to avoid. And I want to explain both how it works in the US very confidently and how it works in Canada moderately confidently. I'm a U.S. licensed CPA, and I know the tax laws in the U.S. very well. But I've been dealing with Canadians for a long time. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. So if you are a Canadian person, you're considering opening a U.S. LLC for your business, this is the video for you. Thanks for being here. Okay, so I've been working with Canadian clients my whole career in different capacities. In the last couple years, I've been working with so many Canadians who are living abroad and living in Canada, and some who are living in Canada currently but planning to leave. So the considerations of whether you should open an LLC or what kind of company you should open are very important. I'm going to skip to the easy stuff. If you have expatriated and left Canada, you should probably open a U.S. LLC and U.S. bank accounts. And as long as you deliver your services from outside of the U.S. and you've expatriated from Canada, you don't have to pay taxes in the U.S. or in Canada. It's a really sweet deal. You can do e-commerce businesses, you can do service businesses, and we can help you set all that stuff up, the bank accounts, the tax reporting, the filing, answer any questions. We do that as a service. We have the peace of mind package. It's really great. Our clients are enjoying it. So that's the short answer. If you left Canada, using an LLC is probably the best. Now, here's where it gets complicated. How to operate an LLC while you're still living in Canada? Or should you open a corporation? Because in the US, we have LLCs and we have corporations, the most common types of businesses. Corporations pay tax in the US, LLCs don't. In the US, LLCs owners pay taxes by default. So when you're a Canadian and you're living in Canada, per Canadian tax law, the LLC is treated as a corporation, which is to say there's no direct pass-through taxation. It's more, it's money that you take from your LLC would be considered a dividend. It's complicated, and there's potential double tax risks because in the US you would be taxed as an individual, but in Canada you'd be taxed as an individual who owns a foreign corporation. So determining your personal residency and the type of business you're operating is the first step. So I used to, by default, tell Canadians who wanted a US company to open a corporation. Canadians living in Canada to open a corporation to avoid the double tax issue that always happens. However, recently, and over the last like 6-7 months, as I've really spent a ton of time researching this and figuring it out, I have a better solution. For my Canadians who have online businesses who don't have a physical presence in the US, if you're providing services from Canada to Americans, or you are selling something on the internet like e-commerce and you're not actually going to the US to do work and you don't have a physical address in the US, which is increasingly common, if that's the case, you can open a US LLC and simplify everything so much. First of all, the reporting in the US when you have an LLC is much easier than when you have a corporation. That's the first thing. Everything's simpler in the US. There's no double taxation because there's no US taxation. The second thing is that there's not really transfer pricing issues in the US. When there's no tax in the US, there's not really a transfer pricing or profit shifting issue, which is another complication. So I guess that falls into option one of it being simpler. So you can essentially open a U.S. company, pay no taxes, use the financial system, use U.S. bank accounts, expand your business, show yourself as a U.S. business without actually paying any U.S. taxes, and do that all from living in Canada. But there are a couple very important caveats and things that I'd love to confirm and have an interview. If you're watching this and you're a Canadian tax advisor who does international taxes, please send me an email. Let's have a chat. Let's do something for YouTube. I've been looking for you for a long time. This is what I pieced together, is that there are two concepts that are really important. As a Canadian, if you have a foreign company, I believe it's form T1134, where as on your Canadian tax return, you need to disclose having a U.S. or a foreign company anywhere. So you need to disclose it on that form. And then there's another concept, FAPI, F-A-P-I, where you have to include in your Canadian taxes your foreign accrual property income, which is, you know, their CFC rules from how I understand it. What I have my clients do, instead of having a corporation dealing with transfer pricing, dealing with U.S. taxation, dealing with navigating two tax systems in great detail, is set up an LLC, confirm that the operations aren't subject to U.S. taxes, And then basically at the end of the year, send all of the profits from the LLC to either your Canadian company or your personal account in Canada. So you can operate all year out of this US company, but at the end of the year, January 1st to December 31st, this US company is effectively break even, and you've sent all the money back to your Canadian corporation as fees. And generally, if you're doing really well, you want to run stuff through a Canadian corp, so you can pay like 20% instead of 40 or 50% in taxes. Again, it's everyone's situation is unique, but that's how I'm recommending people do it. And it's making a lot of sense, and it's making life easier for a lot of clients who, for one reason or another, need a U.S. company for their business. Whether, again, it's just for getting different contracts that they wouldn't be able to get without having a U.S. company, or just being able to put LLC, U.S. company, get payments in U.S. dollars from U.S. Clients. So there's a lot of reasons to have it. And then when you do it this way, you're keeping the costs really low. The risk is already low in the US. And to mitigate the risk in Canada, again, you're not your foreign company just isn't profitable. You've sent all the money back to Canada and you've paid all your taxes in Canada, and that's kind of how it works. And there's a couple added benefits to this. The added benefits are, if you plan to leave in the future, you already have an operational business that once you leave Canada will continue being tax-free in the US. So if you're like, I'm going to leave Canada in the next 2 years, but I need to get my stuff lined up and started up, then open a US LLC, keep working with it, and just make sure that you don't get yourself in trouble in Canada and send all the profits back before the end of the year. And that way, when you decide to leave, you're out of Canada. Your US company has no value. I mean, it's just a payment processor. There's no money in it. There's no accumulated profits. And you'll be ready to go. You're already operating an entire business online from like the day you're outside of Canada. You're already operating, and then you leave the Canadian tax system, then you can really, I guess, keep using the U.S. company and actually leave the money in it. So that's a huge benefit. And then also, when you decide, if you ever decide to sell your business, you have different ways to do it. So if you, let's say you have an e-commerce brand and you're invoicing from both a Canadian company and the U.S. company, generally when you sell the business, you can direct where you want them to pay you. So you can do that based on how you want to structure your capital gains. So obviously, if you live in Canada, you need to get a Canadian tax specialized advice for yourself. But if you're thinking about selling your brand, you can leave Canada first and then sell it into your LLC, and that way you don't ever have any money going to Canada. It's just great to have options. It's good to have a company that pays no taxes, that you can scale and have US dollars where all your clients are, and just have that all set up the right way without having any kind of taxes. It's an amazing thing, and it works for a number of reasons, the US, that I talk about a lot. But essentially, having a US bank account and US LLC doesn't indicate or doesn't cause or trigger you to have a US business. So it's just like you selling into the US from your Canadian company, you still wouldn't pay US income taxes. So having a US LLC and US bank account is the same thing. You don't pay US income taxes because you're not doing business in the US. You're doing everything from Canada. So that's kind of the main thing I want to talk about with service businesses. I think I'm going to make another video about real estate, because investing in real estate as a Canadian is a complete mess, and it's really complicated, and I've seen it done in so many crazy ways. So I'm going to make a separate video about that. But if you have any questions about how you should structure your business, why you think why a US LLC would make a lot of sense for you, you can reach out to my team and we can answer any questions. We have free calls at jamesbakercpa.com/schedule. You can schedule a free call with my team. You can do a paid call, probably with me, on that link. We can discuss, and we can help you actually set up all this stuff and ensure that you're doing it the right way in the US. You're not paying taxes, and you're just giving yourself so many options. Whether you're already left Canada, whether you plan to leave Canada, or whether you just want to stay in Canada but you want to be able to use US payment processors and US bank accounts to grow your business. So whatever you're doing, it's really important to navigate the operational lines so that you're not paying double taxes. But the easiest way to pay no double taxes is by having a business that's not even subject to tax in the first place in the US. Okay, so I hope that's helpful, guys. I talk about this all the time, so I'll see you in the next video, and appreciate you.